To the window,
To the wall.
Lauren Wall.
That's me.
All these
That's good,
bitches
bro.
crawl. Right? That's an intro right there.
That's
Right?
good. You should have played the
Yep.
song though.
You know what? Is it your fucking podcast? Okay.
You're right. You got it. You got it. You got it.
You don't even have a
Better.
fucking you
I
don't
do
even have a
have a podcast.
fucking microphone.
Yeah, but I have a podcast.
Yeah, but it's not the one that we're on today.
Facts. You got
You're
me.
ruining the podcast. Okay? You're literally ruining it. This is gonna be such an awesome episode, and you ruined it already.
I ruined it. I
Okay.
ruined the whole thing.
All
Take
right.
two. Scratch it all.
Take two. To the window. Okay, we're not doing that again. Um, Hi guys. Well, after whatever that was. So Growth by Shawn podcast, Lauren Wall. Hello.
Hello. Thanks for having me. I'm excited.
You're welcome. Um, Lauren, why don't you just give us a nice little elevator pitch of a little bit about who you are, what you do, things of that nature.
Yeah, awesome. My name is Lauren Wall,
Hi,
obviously.
Lauren Wall.
Hi, thank you. I am an online health and fitness coach, really like an online health and wellness coach. I just help women really realize how much power they have and step into it. Right now, that's through health and fitness. I think that's really more of a gateway into the true changes that actually help you step into your power, which is why I'm so passionate about it. A lot of us can see from the outside, like, oh, something, isn't the way that I want it to be. And so that is the intro into completely changing your life for what you want it to be. So that's what I do. I'm a one-on-one coach. And I'm just learning and growing and teaching what I learn so that everybody can up level all together.
Wow, what an amazing soul. Why don't can you just expand on step into your power? What does that mean?
Yeah, that's a really good question. And I think it really depends on the person. Like, I think it is very, very specific to every individual. But really just understanding what you're capable of and the power, using the word to describe the
Mhm.
word perfect.
Mhm.
The power to just understand like what you desire is totally in reach, and just helping you get that feeling of like security, of knowing, of power. Like, that's the only way to describe it.
Power is the only way to describe power.
Yeah, it is. It really is. Because
All right.
like, you, out of all people, like, I know, when you feel it, when you feel that power that you have,
Mhm.
like, there's nothing. You can't even describe that. There's nothing that is anything that can compare to that.
So what you're telling me is that you coach women online to help them have an indescribable feeling in their body?
That's exactly it. That's exactly it. But it's really like in their life, right? Like, you can feel that when you start to tune into it, you can definitely feel it in your body, but it's really just about how you step into life and how you approach life and how you think about life and how you experience life, because so many of us are just so worried about the wrong things. And so it's getting clear on what it is we want, taking care of all the foundational stuff so that we don't even have to worry about that. So that we can focus on what it is that we're actually working towards and get excited about it and enjoy the process.
Okay. What are the things that we are focused on that we should not be focused on?
Ooh, like in general, you're asking?
Well, you had just said that
Yeah,
we
yeah,
focus on the things that we don't need to be focused on. What
yeah,
are they?
I do. So
I'm a great listener.
you
Okay.
are a really
And
great
I'm
listener.
and I'm going to challenge you here.
Okay, amazing. Um, a lot of the time, so speaking from experience, like
Hmm.
personally, I find myself always thinking like, oh, what are they thinking about me?
Hmm.
Right? Like, that's for one. What are they thinking about me? Another one is like, am I doing enough? Right? Am I enough? That's been like a big thing for me. Am I enough for XYZ, whatever that is?
Hmm.
And so all of these thoughts that are constantly playing through our heads, or my head, I guess I can't speak for you and for other people, but through conversation, it's been pretty common, right? Those thoughts that are constantly playing through our minds are keeping us actually from taking the steps to know that we are enough, and to know that it doesn't matter what the heck they think, that it's just about what we think and what we want.
Mhm.
and just allowing ourselves to step away from that as often as we can, hopefully all the time, to be able to like really be on offense in life and just like dive in.
Okay. So, are you helping people change their actual thoughts?
That's a great question. I don't know that that's the intent. I think sometimes maybe that is what happens, but what I do is help them become aware of their thoughts and whether or not those thoughts are helping them or hurting them.
Okay. How do you become aware of a thought?
How do you become aware of a thought? Well, it starts with recognizing what you're feeling,
Okay.
right? So if you're like feeling stressed, right? And a lot of us don't take the time to actually slow down to understand that we're feeling stressed. So for instance, I'll give you like a
Mhm.
little piece of my coaching, right?
Mhm.
In my phase 1, which is a 3-step process, in my phase 1 it's all about awareness. So in phase 1, we start the habit of slowing down, which is in the form of journaling or meditation. Um, it's really kind of like up to them how they want to go about that, but I call it proactive stress control. But it really is just tuning in with yourself, whether that be slowing down and like tuning in with your breath, can be guided or by themselves, or journaling, just whatever's coming to mind,
Mhm.
to start reflecting and looking inwards instead of always go, 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 go.
Mhm.
Does that answer your question?
Yes,
Okay, great.
in a sense. Um, why do you have what is important about this three-step process? Why is it three steps? Are you saying that there's three steps key to life? That's all it
So
takes?
definitely not. There's a million steps. There's never ending steps, right? That's the goal for me, at least. I always want to be climbing, right? I always want to be
Okay.
walking up the stairs. The 3 steps for me. So the first one, like I said, is awareness,
Mhm.
right? So becoming aware of like what it is that's actually holding you back, aware of what it is we're actually moving towards, like what is our actual goal. And like I said, it's health and fitness. So we're looking at most of the time a physique
Mhm.
or a feeling in our body of like just feeling healthy, maybe better digestion, maybe better energy, whatever it is specific to that person. But phase 1, all about awareness and healthy habit building. So creating the foundation, that way we are able to actually make change. And a lot of times you see changes in that, of course, as well. But phase 1 is really all about just getting solid with how you
Mhm.
show up every day.
Okay.
Phase 2 is like the real game changer. So I call that, my company's called The Comeback.
Okay.
So it was primarily for post athletes, and I do work with a lot of post athletes. And it's like, comeback season, like, ooh. So phase 2, no, okay, it's fine. Phase 1 is preseason,
Mhm.
right? So we're just doing everything that we need to do to be successful.
Mhm.
Okay. Phase 2 is game day. So phase 2 is like what people think about when they're actually making a change.
Mhm.
So, whether we're going through a cut, like a dieting phase, or if we go through a muscle building phase, whatever it is like we're actually taking what we've done from the foundation and taking it to that next level.
Mhm.
Okay. And then phase 3 is postseason. So it's a bit of a reflection period. A lot of times when we go through a cutting phase or a dieting phase, there's a lot of stuff that goes on internally that just kind of like slows down. So, like, for instance, our metabolism,
Mhm.
right? Metabolism in preseason, we're getting it all, making sure that it's working how it's supposed to. In game day in phase 2, that metabolism will slow down every time you go through a dieting phase. So phase 3, we're getting that back up to normal,
Mhm.
right? While reflecting on everything that we did on phases 1 and 2 and seeing, okay, what could we have done better? Or what maybe didn't feel the best or what did feel the best so that we can repeat that. But
Okay.
the goal is through all 3 phases, which it's 9 to 12 months typically to go through one cycle of that. My goal is that all of my girls know what I know so that if they want to continue on their own and they feel like they're at a place where they're feeling confident and crushing those foundations and understanding what it is to actually be healthy and to take care of yourself, they
Mhm.
can do that on their own. And I have full belief and full knowing that they're prepped to live a healthy lifestyle and not have to go back to any bad habits or anything that they could have believed before learning.
Okay. Now, why do you do this?
Why do I do this? That's a great question. All of these, such great questions. You're a good question asker.
I'm a great interviewer.
You are. You really
Mhm.
are. Why do I do this? A lot of reasons. For one, I spent the first 22 years of my life not really knowing who I was and not feeling confident unless it were for something else. So, backstory, I played basketball my entire life. And so it was always like, okay, well, how was that game? Right. And like, am I good enough to make it on the all-star team? Am I good enough to make it to play in college? Am I good enough to actually play in college now that I got on the team? Right. And for the most part, it was like, yes, 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 until I made it to college, didn't play. And I was like, I suck. Like, not only at basketball, but like at life. And I had no idea who I was, and my confidence tanked. And that was a horrible feeling. So I turned to fitness when I decided to stop playing basketball. Honestly, because I was trying to transfer schools and I wanted to get into a good sorority. And again, placing my worth on what do these other people think of me? Right? Can I be good enough to get into that good sorority? And so I've chased for so long. I've chased all the acceptance and the validation and the want and everything to the point of where I just didn't want to chase anymore. And I've tried health and fitness so many times in so many different ways, tracking macros, running stadiums, doing HIIT workouts. I've done all of the things and I've put so much effort into chasing something outside of myself that when I ended up getting my own coach, which was 2020, and she opened my eyes to what's actually important. And she showed me how proud I can be of myself for doing things to take care of myself, not for anybody else, not for validation, but for me. I was like, oh my gosh. And it's that power. You feel that power. And now that I have it, there's no way that I can go a day without telling everybody in the world about it, because it's all internal and everybody has the power to do it. So that's what I did.
So when you have this power, how does it show up for you today?
Actually, I have a really great example. So I had a dentist appointment at 7 a.m. this morning, and I'm trying this new thing of like running again, because I used to run all the time and I hated it, but I did it because I wanted, we wanted to lose weight, whatever. But now it's like a new challenge for me, because I'm like, okay, this is something that I actually don't hate and I don't have to force myself to do a lot, but like once a week, I'll try it out. Cool. So I had a dentist appointment at 7 a.m. I was like, I'm going to wake up, go to run at 5, go to the sauna, and then I'm going to go to my dentist appointment at 7. So typically in my past version of myself, if I did that, right, if I went to go run at 5 a.m., I would, 1, be upset that I woke up so early and that I had to wake up so early. 2, feel like shit because I decided to go on a run and I hate running. And 3, be like super stressed out going into this dentist appointment, like upset at myself that I even made it for 7 a.m. Like, why would I do that? And would probably just like keep my head down, go in, get my teeth cleaned and leave. Right. So that I could just rush to whatever is next, because we all know we've got 7 million things to do. So this morning I woke up. Was I tired? Yes, I was. And I was like, okay, this is going to be exciting. I'm going to go run, something that I get to do because I've had 3 knee surgeries. There was a point where I couldn't even walk. Right? Something that I get to do, that I get to challenge myself with. So that's number 1, changing that whole perspective of, oh, I'm tired. Oh, and I get to do this. Perfect. So go on a run, sauna, giving myself time to slow down, putting on meditation music and actually like getting in tune with who I am and just letting go of all the outside noise. And going into that dentist appointment today at 7 a.m., it was so funny. I've been to this office twice, and the lady who took me back was wearing like a top hat. And she was like, oh, it's crazy hat day. And I'm Frosty the Snowman. Right. And I'm like, what? Like in my head, I'm like, what the heck? And if I was in that like low place that I have been for so many years of my life, I probably would have been like, okay. Right? Like, what the fuck do you say to that? Like, it's crazy hat day. Like, I'm Frosty the Snowman. But instead, I've already got this outlook on how the day is going to go because I decided it, right? I decided to step into my power this morning. And so I say to her, oh, no way. I wish I would have known. I could have worn mine. Right. And we just start talking like normal conversation. And it leads to literally the most incredible conversation that I think I've had in the past. I don't know. I can't give a time limit because now I meet these people all the time and it's amazing. Right. Obviously, we know that's how we met. But yeah, that's literally just a simple example of how it actually translates to real life, is like how you show up, the energy that you are able to give off, which is what brings in these connections and these perspectives and these just enjoyable times. Like, who I actually was talking to my mom earlier too. Sorry, I'm just gonna keep going because this is like good stuff.
Yeah,
Please.
please.
Talking to my mom earlier, and she was like, you went to your dentist appointment this morning? And I was like, yeah, I did. And she was like, how was it? I was like, it was so good. And she was like, what are you talking about? Because she texted me this morning, was like, how's your dentist appointment? I said, incredible. She was like, I have never heard anyone say that a dentist appointment is incredible.
Yep.
But like, it is. And it was, because I was in my power and I walked into that dentist's office and I was in my power, ready to go. And it just makes everything so much better. So
look at you. That's incredible. That's incredible.
It's incredible, right? Just like the dentist visit.
For a little backstory about how Lauren and I met, I was walking down the street and I was in a top hat, and Lauren came up to me and she was like, whoa, dude, cool top hat. And I was like, thanks. And then we became friends. And that was about it. Yep. Now here we are doing a podcast together.
Perfect. Yep. No, I think the story actually went, I woke up in the morning and I saw you standing outside of this little like random tiny room.
The Harry Potter room.
The Harry Potter room. Yes.
Yeah. Yes. Where he's underneath the staircase. Yeah, that was my room for the weekend.
Yeah. And I like opened my eyes and I was like, oh, hello.
Yep. And there I was.
Yeah.
And I was like, hi.
Yep. And the rest is history.
Yep. And now we're here. Yep. Yep. I had, well, actually the last night I slept in your bed. Because you weren't there. Well,
was it?
Yeah, it was okay. I was actually only in there for an hour, and then I got up to pee, and then I slept in a different bed instead. Okay,
choice of bed. Choice of bed. No one says that you have to stay in your bed, right? We're not a tree. We're not.
Yeah. So, walk me through. You have noted this version of yourself that you used to be versus this version of power that we see today. Walk me through that process. How did you end up here, as opposed to this version of who you used to be?
Really, really great question. Here we are again. This is a deep one.
That's what I do.
Yeah, I see that. So, oh gosh, where do I even start? Well, like I said before, basketball was basically defining my entire life, right? I grew up playing, I grew up going to trainers, I played AAU, like travel ball, and my whole life was dedicated towards basketball. So my free time, I was always very social. I love people. I love talking to people. But I noticed that it wasn't always me talking about things that I actually wanted to talk about. I was just really good at creating conversation because I was always pretty aware of like what was going on and what people, like how people were acting. So I could figure out kind of what to say to spark up conversation, but it wasn't really anything meaningful. So in high school, my freshman year, I tore my ACL like middle of the season. So obviously I was out for like 9 months, had to rehab it back. And I think that probably sparked the interest of me being like, wow, the human body is really cool. Like we can actually heal things and like we can recover from these things that seem like the end of the world, right? And it also sparked the understanding that in the matter of like a couple seconds, your whole life can be changed, right? Like I was healthy. I wasn't weightlifting at that point. I was like 14, but like, you know, playing a whole basketball game and then all of a sudden I like land weird and my knee just, and all of a sudden I'm not able to do those things. I'm not able to walk. I'm not able to go to the bathroom by myself. I'm not able to do any of these things that a lot of us, or at least I, took for granted for so long. And that it didn't really hit me at that point, but I think that's probably where it started. And then junior year rolls around, I tear my meniscus. I'm out for another 6 months, right? And then right before college, I tear my meniscus again. I'm out for another couple weeks because they just took it out. Anyway, while in college, at our freshman year championship game, I found out my dad was diagnosed with pancreatic cancer. So that led me to question a lot about life, about my faith, about what was next for me. Like, I didn't know. He was always like my rock. He and my mom both. I love my mom to death. And I don't know what I would do if she wasn't here, to be honest. Mm-hmm. But it led to a lot of just uncertainty. And I don't like uncertainty. I don't think a lot of us do, right? But in my head, I was thinking all of the worst possible things that could happen and that I could do, and that like nothing really mattered. And something just like hit me that I was like, I don't want to live like that. Like, again, that life can change so quickly, right? That pattern just kept coming up for me. It came up for me a second time, and obviously in a more like serious way than the first. And so my dad actually passed away my sophomore year, which again even strengthened that understanding that life can just change so quickly. And I don't even remember the question, if we're being honest.
How did you go from this past version that you continue to? Okay, that's
all you need to got hear. Got it. That's all I needed to hear. Okay, so yeah. So again, all of these like little pieces are like kind of falling into place for me in like this very odd way that like nobody would really want. So I decide to transfer once my dad passed away, and I'm like, I want to get into good sorority, all the things, blah, blah, blah. I start working on my health, really just under eating, over exercising. And I transferred schools, went through another like horrible season of thinking that I was getting healthier, ended up meeting a guy who knew a little bit and basically had eating disorder tendencies for a very long time. Okay. Then COVID happened, right? And what?
I'm listening.
Oh, okay, great.
Yeah.
So COVID happened. I, at the time, was living with 3 other girls who I didn't know very well. And one of them was super into yoga. And we had like talked a little bit, but I don't know, we weren't really close. We had very different schedules. Like, it just never really aligned. We didn't really have time, or didn't make time to really get to know each other. And when COVID hit, I was working part-time at the apartment complex I was living at. And her yoga studio that she volunteered at was doing online classes. So she had said, hey, I don't know what you're doing tomorrow, but I'm taking this yoga class online if you want to join me. And so I'm like, okay, I've only tried yoga like once. I didn't really like it, but like, why not? We've got all the time in the world, right? So I took this yoga class with her outside, and like, I don't even know, the back of an apartment complex, on a laptop, on a yoga mat. Didn't really know what I was doing, but the words that were spoken in that yoga class were absolutely transformative. And I couldn't even tell you what they were. But you know, when you listen to someone talk, and maybe it's even someone that you don't know, and they say these words to you that you would have never thought to said, or you didn't know how to put them into words, but you just know that they're true. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So it was one of those moments. And I was just like completely shook. And I don't think I really realized it at the time. Anyway, when I realized that was a thing, my mindset just really shifted to like, okay, what more can I learn? Mm-hmm. And so I started going on walks with her. Like, we spent so much time together, and she honestly is a really big catalyst for my whole journey of stepping into my power. But it really has just been me experiencing something, knowing that it was true, and then deciding to trust whatever was next. So when another situation would come up that brought me into a similar situation of, I don't really know what this is, but I know, like, I feel that it's right. Something feels right. Me just doing it, me saying yes. So I graduated during COVID, was trying to get a job, everything went on a hiring freeze, but the gym was open where I was from in Tampa.
Mm-hmm.
So one of my friends was like, oh, why don't you try to be a personal trainer? And I was like, that's actually a really good idea. I love working out.
There you go.
And so I got that job, and then that's how I met my coach. And so it's just I wish there was one time that like actually shifted it for me, but it really has just been so many domino effects in a row that just continue to get better and better and better. And they're still going on now.
Mm-hmm. I think, there's most likely a 50% and a 50%, where 50% they have that one aha breaking point type moment and everything shifts. Like a very similar catalyst to when you had talked about this online yoga.
Yeah.
It was that moment where that, it's been a dimmer, but that was the light switch. And it's become a dimmer since. So it's interesting for me to hear from where you began and your levels of uncertainty that you began with to the point where you ended ended up here, and all it is about trust with uncertainty now. That was the biggest shift that I had seen. It's interesting for me, like from what you had talked about too, because there's been a lot of synchronicities this past week for myself where even we had a call with Nick where he talked about uncertainty and faith, and today even the dentist, there was uncertainty going into the dentist. You didn't know that she was going to be wearing a top hat and everything. You didn't know any of that.
Yeah.
And learning how to trust that uncertainty, because if you had certainty with everything and you knew everything that was going to happen, life would be pretty boring.
It would. That's a constant reminder I tell myself too, because every time uncertainty comes up, like, it is scary. It's something that we don't know. That's why it's uncertain. And it's so easy to fall back into stressing over it and thinking like, oh my gosh, like this, and this could happen, like thinking the worst. But it's like, okay, and also this, and this could happen, right? Or like something that we can't even fathom right now could happen. And that could completely change everything. And that could lead to the next domino effect that could lead somewhere freaking crazy. Like, yeah, go ahead. We'll get there. I've got.
But yeah, and the other thing that stuck out to me most, because I had just done a podcast before this as well, and it was that a very similar situation in terms of where your mindset was of thinking about all of the bad things that could happen, but not necessarily having an expansive mind where you're like, these are all the good things that can happen too, only focusing on those negative things. And it was that he said the same thing. He was going to run a 50-mile race, and it was all about just, will I get hurt? What if I don't finish? All of these different things, but it was never, oh, well, what if I'm the best athlete out there? Something of that nature. How do you deal now? Is it just the same thing in terms of, let me think for a minute, because I want to see if I want to go more into uncertainty or more with when clients come to you, okay, what is it about these negative thought processes? How did we develop these? Why do we have them? And why is it so difficult for us to focus on the good things as opposed to all of the problems and issues we may have?
Yeah, another really great question. I think it really depends, again, which like is a horrible answer, but it really depends on the person, because the women that I work with, they all, just like all of us, have their own unique experience, and they've experienced things that most people haven't experienced, right? Like they've got their own unique domino effect that's led them to this point. I think it's most comfortable to think about the negatives, especially because most of us have reference points that are negative, right? And in those negative reference points, when we think about those times, it gives our ego something to hold on to, because it's a certainty, right? We're getting away from that uncertainty and back to something that we know, back to something that we can grasp, back to something that seems more tangible than something that we don't know. And so the first step, just like in phase 1, right, is really uncovering that and becoming aware of it and saying like, okay, well, let's hold on a second, right? A lot of times I'm talking to my girls, okay, let's take a deep breath, right? Let's come back to right now and let's think about, okay, why is it that we're thinking back to that time? Why is it that that's our first autopilot reaction, right? Because there's probably just some sort of reference point that's making it easier for us to do that. But just because that's happened in the past, especially now that we're aware of it, doesn't mean that that's what's going to happen in the future. And now that we're aware of it, we get to choose that that's not what's going to happen in the future. We get to choose what's going to happen in the future. We get to try something new, right? Takes us into kind of like a trial and error type situation, which again leaves so much room for uncertainty. It leaves a lot of room for failure, but not the type of failure that knocks you all the way down, the type of failure that gives you back data so that you can choose something different and try again.
Mm-hmm. To piggyback off of what you're saying here, and I think this will just be helpful for people that are listening to visualize this a little bit differently.
Yeah.
So your brain is here to keep you safe, and so the thing about the past repeating itself, the brain already understands if this is what's happened in the past, your brain won't try to repeat it because it at least knows what will happen. The same thing of what you're saying with the certainty and uncertainty. There's certainty of what will happen. And so you're constantly attempting to repeat the past because your brain is trying to keep you safe because, okay, this happened in the past. So this will happen again. And your brain understands that this is what will happen again. And so building that awareness is difficult because you're going against your human nature in a sense.
I would even argue that even if we're trying not to repeat the pattern, we're manifesting that pattern, right? Like, and I actually learned this from Nick, but the mind doesn't understand negatives. Right. So if we see that like something happened in the past and that created a pattern and we're like, I'm not going to do this, I'm not going to do this, I'm not going to do this, all our mind is focused on is still that. So all of our energy is still going towards that. And we're trying to say no, 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 but all it is leading us back because again, it's like a little trick that our mind is playing on us. It's what's comfortable, it's what's known, it's what's certain, it's what's comfortable, but not actually what we want.
Yeah, don't think of an elephant and you automatically think of an elephant, that easy example that many people have stated. So when you talk about manifesting and manifestation, what does that really look like for you? And how do you utilize it in your everyday life?
Really great question. Honestly, I don't use it as much as I should, or as much as I could. Let's start there. Manifestation for me, which probably a year ago, someone could have said that to me and I would have been like, what? And I think a lot of us start that way. It's not the actual act of manifestation, like writing down, what your vision is or thinking about what you want or whatever that is, right? That's what we think of when we think of manifest. It's not that actually produces the change. That's the starting point, right? That's the catalyst. So when you write that down, just like we talked about, when we're thinking of don't do this, don't do this, don't do this, and our energy is going towards that. When we write down, this is what I want, this is what I'm becoming, this is what's going to happen for me, we're constantly thinking about what it is that we're actually working to accomplish. And because we're thinking about it, when we decide to take that action, the aligned action that goes along with that manifestation just speeds up the process. So for me, again, I don't do it as often as I could. And that's something that I'm actually actively working towards starting today, is getting present and sitting down with myself to think about what it is that I actually want and thinking about, okay, what are the actions that future me would be taking and how can I start taking those today, right now?
How deep into this are you? Is this
How
something that you're going
deeply?
to do? Is this something you're going to do later, or you've already done this?
Oh, it's something that I'm doing literally. I have a call right after this, and then right
Hmm.
after that, I will be doing it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, first thing, top of your mind, what do you actually want?
What do I actually want? That's a really hard question because I feel like I am living such a great, like, it's not that everything in my life is perfect right now, but
Hmm.
I'm just excited. I'm excited to live and I'm excited to keep learning. Um, I definitely want to be the girl who sticks to her bedtime. We'll start there. And I haven't been recently. And like that's something that's totally in my control, that I can just set a timer and be like, okay, as soon as this timer goes off, as soon as I'm done, right? As soon as it goes off, no matter what I'm doing, I can go get ready for bed.
Hmm.
Um, and mostly because that is another domino effect, right? I go to bed earlier, I wake up and I don't feel as tired, and then it's easier for me to get into this power, into this headspace. Um, but yeah, what I want is truly just a continuous life of learning and growing. That is what makes me the happiest, and choosing myself every day. And I
Hmm.
feel like I'm well on my way, but there's always stuff to learn and there's always stuff to do better.
Yep. I think that's a great transition into the last question where we'll close up with. So the previous guest has left you a question. Okay.
Oh, oh,
Yep.
okay.
So you might not have heard of him. His name's Dave Robinson, really great friend of mine. He is a story work coach. Not sure if you know what that is, but you can always go and listen to a previous podcast that we've done in order to learn more. But Dave's question is, what is your personal definition of impact?
Ooh, that's good. My personal definition of impact is starting the ripples.
Okay.
And what I mean by that is planting a seed and changing somebody's life, whatever that means, so that they can continue to share the knowledge that they've learned.
Hmm.
And it ripples in
So
the ocean.
what is the knowledge that you're sharing in order to create that ripple?
Well, there's a lot of it. And I think
Okay.
that it depends on who's listening, right? And
Okay.
what they decide to take. Because a lot of
Okay.
my stuff is like, if you resonate, take it. If you don't, leave it.
Mm-hmm.
I talk about fitness. I talk about nutrition. I talk about mindset. I talk about life. I talk about, I don't know, hair. I talk about everything.
Mm-hmm.
So if something that I say gives you the ability to live your life a little bit better or feel better in your skin, then it's probably something that you're going to share with somebody else.
Hmm.
And it's all about, I think the biggest thing for me is human connection too. Like the more we can connect with people and like talk about real things,
Mm-hmm.
the better everybody lives and the more we all elevate just as a collective.
Hmm.
It's just, oh, I could go on for
Okay. Um, First, before I expand on that briefly, can you just let us know where we can find you and potentially work with you?
Yes. So my Instagram is @_Lauren_lifts_. And then TikTok is the same, but there's 2 underscores at the end. So @_Lauren Lifts__. So that's where I post everything about working with me, health, life in general. So obviously, like the application is in my bio if you want to work with me one-on-one. But if anybody has any questions or you just want to chat or you want to bounce some ideas off each other, like absolutely happy to do that too. My DMs are always open. Yeah.
Okay. And then when you look at the impact and allowing people to take what resonates, discard what doesn't, what impact do you think you have provided myself?
Ooh, impact on you. Ooh, that's such a good question. You know, I think for one, which like we can't really get into it, but
Mm-hmm.
at the retreat that we were both at,
Mm-hmm.
when we did that eye gazing thing,
Hmm.
I think that started the vulnerability and the openness, at least for
Mm-hmm.
me, in
Mm-hmm.
that weekend. Um, And I'm hoping that that impact was similar on you, to where now we have just like a deeper understanding of each other and ourselves. I don't know. You tell me. You're the one,
Okay.
right? I'm not in your mind. I wish I was so I could know.
Yep.
But I'd love to know.
What impact you have had on me?
Yeah.
Nothing.
Oh, great. And that's my cue. Go.
Yep. End of podcast. I would say that the biggest impact is I would honestly agree with the vulnerability aspect of, it's okay not to have all of the answers, as long as you're in this continual process of learning and sharing what you have learned with everyone else. And I think that's the biggest component to what actual knowledge is the ability to share it. And when you're able to share it, whether it hits in the right spot or, it's not really for me, um, you have allowed that person to have some type of perspective shift, whether they received that knowledge in a good way or it just didn't land for them. That perspective shift they're able to have. So that's what I'd roll with.
I love that.
Yep.
It's big. It's like planting the seed, right?
Planting
You
the
don't know what
seed.
they're gonna do with it. You don't know if it's gonna grow, but it's there just in case.
No idea. All right. Thank you, Lauren. All right.
Thank you.
Clocking out.